Good day. We have here our another topic in applied statistics. So these are the collection of data and presentation of data. For these lessons, we will be able to compute accurately for sample size, determine the appropriate sampling techniques used in the study to be conducted, and draw a graphical presentation of frequency distribution. What do you mean by collection of data? Okay, as we can remember, in the process of statistics, it is stated there that the first process belongs to collection of data. So this collection of data refers to the process of obtaining numerical measurements. There are two sources of data. We have the documentary sources and the field sources. When we say documentary sources, the information contained in published or unpublished reports, statistics, internet, letters, magazine, newspaper, and so on. These are taken from the primary data and secondary data. So, what is primary data? These data gathered are original, and secondary data, these are data that were previously gathered from an original source which are computed or compiled. Okay, while field sources, these would include individuals who have sufficient knowledge and experience regarding the study under investigation. So from these two sources, we can differentiate them because when we say documentary, so this is a form of printed or it is already published or unpublished. So we can see this in internet, um, mostly internet. While field sources is something like we are going to have the interview. So here, these are the methods used in collection of data. We have the first, which is the common, the direct method or interview method. So this is a face-to-face encounter between the interviewer and the interviewee. So again, another way how to collect the data is using the direct method or interview method. Next, we have the indirect method or questionnaire method. So this method is done by giving prepared relevant questions or questionnaires to the respondents of the study from which one would like to get the needed information. So this is the mostly used method in collecting data. You're using questionnaire here. Next is the registration method. So it is a method of utilizing the existing data or fact or information which is kept systemized by the office concerned, such as registration of birth, death, motorcycle vehicles, and marriage and license, because these are being enforced by certain laws. Okay, so from the word itself, registration, so this data is already registered in a particular office. And if you want to get information or if you want to collect this data, you're required to visit or request and make a formal letter in order for you to be entertained. Another method is the observation method. So this method is used to collect data pertaining attitudes, behavior, values, and cultural patterns of the samples under investigation. So from the word itself, observation method is used, specifically when you are observing or you're studying about the attitude, or the behavior of a particular culture. So another one is the experiment method. So this method is used if the researcher would like to determine the cause and effect relationship of certain phenomena under investigation. So most of the experimental research use this experiment method. No? Okay, so those are the method on collecting data. We have here planning the study. Last, no, we are discussing about the process and statistic. But in here, since we are talking about the collection of the data, so we have to learn how to plan or what are the process in conducting the study. So first, no, first of all, when you conduct the study, you have to estimate the number of items in the population. When we say estimate the number of items, you are going to determine the number of population and so that you can distinguish or you can plan or you can think no if possible ba or um, kaya ba ninyo nga studihan ng particular nga population. Next, we have to assess resources such as time and money factors which are available to pursue the research. Okay, so this is one of the important no, in planning the study because um, it is very hard no if you are going to conduct the study but you don't have the resources especially the money factors because in conducting the research um, you have to use no you have to spend in order for your research to be attainable. Next, we have to determine the sample size needed in the study using the Sloven's formula. So since you already determine the number of your population, so it is important also to determine the sample size because we are just or some study is one large ang young population and it can lost or it consume so much time and money. So it is appropriate now we have to choose the sample size. So when we are talking about Sloven's formula, so this is the formula how to get the number of desirable sample size, where n stands for the sample size equals capital N, which is the population size, over 1 plus population population size times the margin of error squared. We're going to apply this formula for this example. Okay, example number one, a researcher in Berkeley College wants to survey or to make a survey in the school with a population of 10,000 students with a margin of error of 10%. How many students must he take into his sample? Okay. In solving a problem, we need to determine the what is being asked and what are the given. So for this problem or for this example, we are given the number of population of 10,000 students and we have the margin of error of 10%. So we are going to find the number of the sample. So applying the formula, we have arrived this n equals capital N over 1 plus capital N e squared. So that is 10,000 over 1 plus the quantity of 10,000 times the 0.10 squared. So that is equal to 10,000 over 1 plus 100. Okay, nganong 100 na? Because if we're going to, kanino, we need to disseminate this first. So the 0.10 squared is equal to 0.01 or 0.001, I guess. That will be multiplied to 10,000. So the result is 100. Then next is 10,000 divided by 101. That will equal to 99. So therefore, our sample size will be 99. So this is how to use the Sloven's formula. Okay, now we will proceed to the next. No, pick the sample by using the appropriate sample technique. Okay, since you are done with um, looking or computing for the sample size, next thing to do is to choose what appropriate sample method or techniques you need to use in your study or in selecting your respondents. After, prepare the questions to be asked in the interview or in the questionnaire. So this is how to plan your study. So there are types of questions. We have the structured questions. So this is a type of questions that leaves only one way or few alternative ways of answering it. So that is open, open questions. Another one is the unstructured or open-ended questions. So these are questions that can be answered in many ways. Probing questions are easy questions that want to elicit reasons. This is the probability sampling techniques. We have the probability sampling or the simple random sampling and the non-random sampling. So we need to distinguish the difference between these two sampling techniques. When we say probability sampling, so this is the common used in research. So this is a sampling procedure of selecting a sample size n from a universe n or the population such that each member of the population is given a non-zero chance of being included in the small and all possible combinations of size n have an equal chance of selecting as the sample. So the key word here is they have all the chance of selecting as a sample. Okay, another thing, probability sampling means that picking things at a random means picking things without bias or any predetermined choice. So, walay bias, no? So, there are types of random sampling. We have the systematic sampling, which is the process of selecting sample when units are obtained by drawing every nth element of the population. So, this is the key term so that you can determine that particular study is using the systematic sampling. So how to get the nth term or nth element of the population? So we have a formula: n equals total of number of elements in the population over the desired sample size. So for example, if you have the population of 50,000 and the sample size of 100 at 10% margin of error, so we can determine the nth item. So the nth item equals 50,000 over 100, which is our nth is 500. So that means that this study uses the systematic sampling by selecting the sample or the every 500 um, element should be or shall be chosen as their sample until it come up to the total of 100. which is the sample size. So for example, so the first sample is 500, then next, since it is fifth or 500, so next is the 1000, that is the second element. Next is the 15 or 1500 element, and so on and so forth, until nga mo come up siya sa sample size nga 100. Okay, so now we will proceed to the stratified sampling. So population is divided into groups based on homogeneity to avoid the possibility of drawing samples whose members come from one stratum. Okay, that means that um, when you use this stratified sampling method, so for example, no, it is group, no, or divided into group na ang population. So it is advantage because when you group your population, there is no there's a possibility nga dili na or there is an equal distribution of sample. So dili kay basin og ato ra sa group 1 nagdaghan or mostly to adito without the basis. So in this method, no, nabahin-bahin jud ni siya because we are going to follow certain formula man po diri no, which is the percentage. How to get the pila ang kuan la sample nga particular group sa ato ang study. Okay, the distribution of sampling units is proportional to the total number of units in each stratum. So, mo ni siya, no, na ay percentage nga gisunod sa pag-determine. So, there are steps. We need to identify the N or the N, which is the population, and its different strata or group. Okay, divide the members of the population in percent shares. So, mo to, no, i-divide na to using the percent shares. Then multiply each percent by n sample units to get the actual number of sample units for each stratum. So, for this example lang, let us take a population of 50,000 families in Tagigaraw City. Draw 100 sample units from this population with 10% margin of error. There are 25,000 families who belong to the high income group, 10,000 families in the middle income group, and 15,000 in the low income group. So in this problem or in this example, we are given already the groups, no, or the strata in this population. So the population of the families is having the total of 50,000. Then these families are grouped into high income nga naa siya total number of population nga 25,000, and we have the middle income nga naay 10,000, and low income which has the 15,000. So this population of each strata, ang atong buhaton ani in order for us to determine the pila ra ka sample unit ang atong makuha. So first to do is we need to use the formula katong ko formula wala diri So we have the formula here, that is the population ni strata, that is 25,000 divided by the total population. So in the first, no, 25,000 divided by 50,000. So which result to 50%. And this will be multiplied to the number or to the sample size, which is 100. So to come up the number of sample, imo na po nang i-multiply. So si 50% or si 0.5 multiplied by 100, which will result to 50. So that is the number of sample units in high income nga stratum. So out of 25,000, so you will only get the 50 nga sample. Next, for the middle income, so natay 10,000 nga population. So that is 10,000 divided by the total population, which is 50,000. That will result as 20% or 0.2. And this will be multiplied to the sample size nga 100. So 100 times 0.2 will come up 20. So in this stratum, middle income, so only 20 unit will be computed as our sample out of 10,000. So next, we have the low income stratum. So in here, nasa 15,000, which is divided into or divided by the 50,000 population, will come up 0.3 or 30%, and this will be multiplied by the sample size nga 100. Imaniha 100 na siya dira sample size. So the result is 30. So out of 15,000, only 30 ang imuhang kuhaon diha. So to sum it up, the total sample units is equal gihapon og 100. Kung imo nang i-total ang mga sample unit each strata. So this is how to compute or to find the number or the sample unit each strata when you are using the stratified sampling method. So next we have here the cluster sampling. So cluster sampling is an area sample because it is frequently applied on a geographical basis. It is useful in selecting the sample when heterogeneous groups occupy blocks in the community or city. So this cluster method is more on lugar siya or something community or city. Another thing is a multi-stage sampling. So this technique uses several stages of phases in getting the sample from the general population. So it is useful in conducting a nationwide survey or any survey involving a large universe. So this kind of sampling method is from the word multi-stage is combination of the techniques. And now we will proceed to the non-probability or non-random sampling. So, usa kay kalahian ni random and non-random. For non-random sampling, it is the sample techniques wherein not all members of the population given the equal chances to be selected. So this is an opposite of the random sampling, because in non-random, not all members of the population are given the equal chances to be selected. So the researcher states his prejudice in the choice of sampling. So there is a free will for the researcher to use his choice of the sampling. It finds its greatest use in the fields like market research or in employment department of companies. So non-random sampling is mostly used for market research because it is something like the large and most of these market research we cannot determine the population in this study. So it is appropriate to use the non-random sampling. So there are types of non-random sampling. We have the purposive sampling, which is based on certain criteria and rules laid down by the researcher. So for this method, there is the certain criteria and the rules laid by the researcher. So ang control is ang researcher. Another is the quota sampling. The researcher limits the number of his samples based on the required number of the subject under investigation. So from the word quota, there is the limit of or limits of the number of his sample or samples. Naikota siya. Then next we have the convenience sampling. So this sampling means that the researcher conducts a study at his convenient time, prepared place, and venue. For from the word convenient or convenience, so the control is given to the researcher because it is his choice ug usa ang pabor niya, no? So he specified the place and time where he can gather his data. Okay. So we have here the we're going to check your understanding. So we are going to answer this example. Um, Give the population size or with their corresponding margin of error. Determine the sample size of each of the following. So we have given the population na 10,000 and the margin of error of 5%. Another, we have the N population of 5,000 and the margin of error of 10%. So to solve this problem, you need to use the Sloven's formula. Next, how many samples must I pick from 800 members of mathematics club in a square margin of error of 3% is used? So again, for this problem, you can use this Sloven's formula to solve. Now we will proceed to determine what methods of collection of data is or appropriate to be used for the following data. So here, you're going to give the answer if you're using the interview, the questionnaire. So you're going to determine what method. Okay. Now we will proceed to the presentation of data. So this refers to the organization of data into tables, graphs, or charts. So that logical and statistical conclusion can be derived from collected measurements. So this is the second process in statistics. So after collecting the data, or when your data is already collected or gathered, now you can proceed to the presentation or you need to present your data. So how to present? So you can use or you can organize your data using the tables, graphs, or charts. So there are methods of presenting data. We have the textual presentation. That means we can present the data in a paragraph form. Data written and read or combination of text and figures. Another is tabular presentation. So we can present our data in the form of rows and columns. And it can be easily understood and used for comparison and facilitate analysis of relationship between and among the variables presented. So mostly ang mga research is they use the tabular presentation. So gisulod nila table ilang mga na-gathered nga data. Next is the graphical presentation. So this is in a way of presented in visual form. So graphs may appear in many forms like line bar, circle, map, or picture graphs. Picture of numerical data. So some research mogamit sa ani nga kuan presentation kaning graphical. So ilang himuan ba og picture graph or pie graph ang ilang na-gathered nga data. So these are the kinds of graphs. I know that you are familiar with this, kaning line graph, which shows the relationship between two or more sets of quantities. Maniporma, sa line graph. Then we have here the, okay, for a while, Okay, we have here the bar graph. So we use this to illustrate the data and make easy comparison between and among sets of data. So this is the form of a bar graph. So this is a horizontal bar graph. We can also make the vertical bar graph. Next, we have the circle graph. So this is used to show how parts of the data are related to the whole and to each other. And we have the pictograph or pictogram. It is used it used small identical pictures or figures of objects, or that is called isotopes, in making comparisons. And we have this commonly known frequency distribution table. So it is a list, table, or graph that display the frequency of various outcomes in a sample. So as I have discussed in central tendency. So for the group data, we presented the group data in a form of frequency distribution table. So yan yung forma niya, no. Makakita tag mga class interval frequency, the greater cumulative frequency. So mo ni siya ang frequency distribution table, and the frequency distribution graph is kanina sa ubos. Okay. So for this topic, we're going to refer this figure to answer the following questions below. Okay. So refer how many, I'll be the one to answer this one, but katong na una kamoy mo answer ato. So refer the graph and answer the following questions. How many types of supplies are shown in the graph? So how many types of supply? So there are 4 types: the notebook, rulers, markers, and stickers. So the answer for number 1 is 4. How many markers does the store have in stock? So based on the graph, we're going to check how many markers. So the markers is naa siya sa approximately 28 siya. Kaya wala man po dyan abot sa 30. So the answer for number 2 is 28. Number 3, how many items does the store have in stock together? So i-add ra nimo o pila ang niya. So sa pila ang notebook, pila ang ruler, pila ang markers and stickers. So that is the total for that is the answer sa question number 3. Number 4, how many more stickers sets are there than rulers? So ang giingon niya, pila ang sticker set. Ang labaw sa sticker set sa ruler. So pila ang sticker set? So nasa approximately 19, and the ruler is nasa 9. So that ang difference nila is 10. So therefore, the answer for number 4 is 10. Number 5, which item does not or does the store have the most? So based from the graph, so the most item is kaning notebooks. Number 6, if markers sell for 25 pesos each, how much will all markers cost? So you're just going to multiply 25 pesos to the marker nga 29. So the product will be the amount of the marker. So that is all about our topics, and for the activity in the first topic, so you have to answer that in our Google Classroom. So I will post this in the Google Classroom, and please attach your answer there.